Welcome to the Veterans Cafe podcast, where we talk about issues surrounding veterans and soldiers, as well as current events in the world.
Sometimes we interview guests and organizations, but more than anything, we are here for you.
Welcome to another episode of the Veterans Cafe podcast. I'm Wes.
I'm Tracy.
And today on this episode, we wanted to talk a little bit about the future of food.
And if you know me at all, you know that I love food, right? I'm into nutrition, and I mean healthy nutrition, and I'm into, working out and just being healthy.
I thought you were talking about corn dogs, deep fried.
You know what's funny is no, but what's funny is I'm going to be 45 soon, right? So I've been telling my husband this of late, whenever I have something that's too spicy now, which used to be one of my favorite things, I can't digest it, so it's terrible. But my stomach used to be a tank. Right? I used to be one of those people who would have a beer and then a bacon cheeseburger and then just go deadlift and squat and be fine. But, I can't do that anymore. But anyway, about food, I love food and I love nutrition. I love the science behind it. And I just love the happy endorphins I get from some kinds of food. But I don't know. There's a couple of articles that we saw recently that we just wanted to talk about because, they concern you as well. Not just me and my fatty food.
Before we get into it, thinking about MREs and the way they are now, do you consider them food?
No.
Well, what are they then? Are they just packaged nutrients that are just stuffed into a dry?
The nutrients is questionable, but it's all processed. I mean, it's not. In my opinion,
I have to say they're not as bad. They probably, in terms of nutrients and whatnot, are not as bad as the food that is shipped over by some of the private contracting companies.
I've shared this story before. There were dogs in Haiti that were starving, and you could see their bones, and they refused to eat our MREs. I've shared this story before. That was what was one of those epiphany moments for me that made me wonder what is in this MRE.
But that could be just because they taste bad.
No.
Food.
It's like the study with the cockroaches and the Twinkies where they starved to death when they were with the Twinkie. I feel like the MRE is the same thing. Do you disagree?
Don't get me wrong. MREs are horrible. And of course, but I have to say, I was one of those privates that when I first had them, I was like, oh, yeah, these things aren't that bad. They're pretty decent.
I thought it was actually kind this cool, food.
Yeah. Once you actually get exposed to them a little bit though, you have to eat them consistently for a small period of time. You're like, oh my God.
Do you remember those challenges where you were supposed to eat? I don't remember how many saltines with no water to see if you could swallow them. Do you remember those challenges, which nobody can do?
Yeah.
But anyway, so
but we had some pretty creative guys too with the MREs. So we'd have guys that would melt the peanut butter and then mix it with the cocoa and turn it into some Reese's stuff, It's
like Top Chef.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. I mean, like I said, I've only been in the Army for just over 6 years, and I thought they were very cool looking, because I didn't come from a military family. I'm like, this is really cool. So I'm not going to lie. There was the chili mac that I loved, and there was a couple of pastas that I don't remember anymore that I liked. And, part of the fun, back then was oh, I have MREs. Do you have whatever? The swapping was kind of fun.
The economy, MRE economy. I think I've heard somebody refer to that. It may be a podcast or something I'll listen to, but
I believe it.
I'm pretty sure they refer to it as the MRE economy, which is awesome because that's exactly what it is. The whole barter system.
But that's kind of fun. Barter is kind of fun. But it's still MREs involved. I mean, there's nothing good about it. And you know what's funny is that everybody always who has the Skittles? Skittles taste like shit. Yeah, I'm not a Skittles person.
I don't get the whole who has the Skittles thing. I need the Skittles. Yeah, so I can do without the Skittles.
Yeah, well, I'm not a huge candy person. Anyway, the whole reason we're bringing up MREs is because once the newness wore off for me and I started realizing that there's a really high calorie content, and if I'm out in the field for days, that's not something that I want to consume. But And of course, as I said, I've shared the story with the starving dogs, which made me wonder if it's really food. There is something that I saw in the news, and I believe it was Army Times, and they were talking about 3D printing. And I thought the 3D printing was interesting because I think it's something that they started talking about a couple years ago, but it just like recently resurfaced again in 2016. And the reason that they're thinking of the 3D printing is because they're actually trying to extend the life of the MREs. And they're trying to customize them to like whatever nutritional, specifics you may have. Like if you're, I don't know, allergic to dairy, I'm just throwing that out there. And then in theory, right?
So, but more than that, moving on further from just you being having some health condition or allergic reaction, they were talking about how new equipment that'll be coming out soon. I say soon, but in the next decade or so, will actually be able to track your physiological needs in a certain environment that you're in. So if it sees that you are needing protein, or if it sees that you're needing more carbohydrates, or if it sees that you're needing some type of vitamin, you're having some type of vitamin deficiency or something, they can actually 3D print a meal that contains the nutrients that you need, basically like a multivitamin, and provide that for you in your meal.
That's so awesome.
Which is insane. I mean, they actually showed on the website that we'll link to, of course, they show the 3D printing sort of process. And they show them making like weird, I don't know, it looks like crackers or something. I don't know what it is.
Oh, I saw one where they were making a pizza.
Yeah, I was about to say they should one. Literally, they have the process of making a little deep dish pizza on there, and like they were saying in the article, they can actually add whatever type of, if you're having some type of deficiency for whatever reason, they can add those nutrients in, just as basically like the same way they would add salt and pepper. just like print out whatever the hell you need. I mean, it's crazy.
But part of me is like so conflicted because like I'm like the sci-fi nerd, right? So I'm thinking about like all these like sci-fi movies where you wake up and you pee in a cup or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, you can't have bacon today or whatever. Like there's all those movies that talk about like what's going to happen in the future. But I'm also like a sci-fi fan in the sense that I think this is so cool. Like I remember the Jetsons, right? Like I mean, they were just like, my memory is that they were so far in the future, right? As a little kid, I was like, oh my God, the Jetsons, one day, wouldn't that be cool if you could just type into like this, like, wall computer and your whatever would come out, your cheesecake or whatever. I just thought that was, so part of me is like really fascinated with the fact that I feel like we're getting to that point.
I almost feel like that was a Freudian slip that you went straight to cheesecake.
I know. I don't even really like cheesecake. It just kind of threw it to, I don't know, it was the first thing I could think of. But anyway, I don't know. I like the fact that technology has improved so much, and I like the fact that the military is trying to incorporate some of that at some point. I mean, we're not saying that 3D printing is going to happen tomorrow, but I like the idea that it will happen one day. And the nutritional value is awesome. That could be individualized, but at the same time, I don't know if I want everybody to know what vitamin I'm lacking. I don't know. It's kind of creepy to me.
Well, I think it's more about than just, more about your physiology than just what vitamin you're lacking. Because it talks a little bit about how, it could say that a soldier is like tall and muscular, so they obviously need more protein to be able to maintain that.
The muscular.
Yeah. Muscularity. Is that a word?
The muscle density. The hypertrophy.
That sounds incredibly professional. Muscle density instead of muscularity. Yes. Instead of that beefdom that they've accomplished. So they'll need more protein. So, and they won't just need more protein, obviously, just to keep the muscle. They'll need more protein to be able to function properly, because obviously if they're in some type of condition to where they're extremely active, they don't just need calories. They need protein to be able to maintain the muscle mass that they already have. And of course, the Army is, well, they're saying they're working on our fitness and all that, and they're trying to make it more efficient and make it to where, strength and things like that are more relevant than just being able to do 40 push-ups in 2 minutes. But that's obviously something that really could become important as we continue to become more physically fit, because the way that the military is probably going to be changing the PT test is the same way that we're seeing just changes in athletics as well. You see like football players becoming more faster, more stronger. You know, you see basketball players becoming, you know, they can jump higher, they can do all these things. And soldiers are evolving the same way, you know, not evolving in the, you know, evolutionary sense, but of course adapting and just changing and becoming that much stronger and faster as well. So it makes sense that we're going to need some type of food system that can actually deliver the nutrients that we need for that to actually happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think anybody who works out or anybody who's like a bodybuilder or I don't know, any kind of like athlete in any way knows that nutrition is incredibly important to your performance, right? I mean, if you're eating like crap, you're not going to be able to perform very well. So I like the fact that it looks like or it sounds like, you know, that's definitely something that the military is looking at, right? So I'm pretty excited about that. And I don't know, I think the 3D printing, you know, the science behind that is just, oh my God, so awesome. So I just wanted to mention it in case, you know, no one has heard about it. Like I said, you know, like my husband said, we can definitely link to the articles, but I don't know, where science is going is so amazing because speaking of food, I don't know, Wes sent this to me the other day, I think in a text message or something. And I was like, what? You know? Okay.
So I heard about these guys, listening to another podcast I listened to, and the owner of the company's name is Memphis Meats, okay? And these guys have actually developed a way to create meat in a lab. Like, they are not slaughtering animals, they're not doing all those things that are being challenged ethically right now in terms of creating meat. And literally what they're doing is they're taking cultures from healthy cells of say like a cow, like a good healthy cow. So they're taking a culture, they're taking the cells that are used to repair muscles in this cow, and they're actually, all they're doing is allowing it to replicate itself in a lab setting. And they are actually creating just chunks of beef in an incredibly efficient and cost-effective way. And they show on their website they have just created the first like meatballs. Like they're on meatballs right now.
So weird to me.
Well, they can only do ground beef and stuff like that right now. So, and the reason is because when you get into steaks and things like that, there are a whole lot of different cells involved, you know, all the marbling and the fat and everything it requires. It's much more complex than just creating ground beef. So, but what they're focused on right this second is just creating ground beef and actually trying to bring it to market, which personally I think is incredibly amazing.
I think it's creepy because I like the idea that if this works out, right, then there'll be no slaughterhouses. And I think we all think that, you know, or we're all aware of the fact that, you know, those animals are treated terribly. So I like the fact that this could be the end of slaughterhouses specifically, right? But it's also kind of creepy because we're making like meat.
But it's coming from the same place that the meat is made in the first place. You know, it's just these cells replicating themselves.
So creepy to me.
That's all it is. So as soon as I told Tracy this story, we had this whole little, and I don't feel like she disagrees with me in the sense that she thinks it's like an awesome thing or, you know, an awesome advancement or anything like that. But she has this creepy feeling. And the podcast that I listened to, where I got this from, and you know what, I'll go ahead and link to the podcast anyways. I'll link to the podcast episode where I heard it, because they actually get into the host of the podcast actually did a poll on Twitter asking people, you know, what you think about this sort of technology or whatever. And it was split like 25, 25, 25, 25, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the 25 percentiles was creepy. It was a creepy thing that's just weird.
I know I'm always talking about sci-fi and movies, but it's like what I love. But like The Island, oh my God, like they were basically just creating bodies.
Oh my God, it's not even the same. It's not even the same spectrum. That's
I'm
totally
just saying,
different.
it's where my brain goes.
They were like creating living conscious beings and harvesting their organs. This is a totally different thing.
But that's where my brain goes. My brain makes that connection.
So just to quickly address this creepy feeling that Tracy has and many others who may be listening to this. If you want your meat grown in a petri dish like this, you know, you want it replicated, you want it grown in this type of environment. What was interesting about it was when the host of the podcast asked the CEO of this company, how he approached this whole creepy sentiment that people seem to have. His argument was, this is actually more natural than what you would find in a slaughterhouse, because it's still a natural process that's occurring. It's still the same way that, say, if a cow was injured in some way, it's exactly how they would heal themselves. It's the same cells, it's the same muscle tissue. It would be healing itself in the same way, the way that they're growing this meat. And also, it's more natural in the sense that if you consider the conditions of a slaughterhouse and the antibiotics, the chemicals, the preservatives, all that stuff that's kind of, just injected into meat to make it, I guess, safe for us. If
safe
that's what
is
it
such a
even
relative
is.
word, yeah.
Yeah, in this context it is.
Yeah.
But so if you look at it that way, this meat is much more safe for us because it's created in a sterile condition where there's no possible way for contamination until it gets on the market. Of course, if it gets sent to, Target or H-E-B or Kroger's or something, then contamination can obviously happen there, but not during the processing the same way that it can happen in the slaughterhouse, which is why all these antibiotics and everything are introduced in the first place.
Right.
And not even just talking about meat, but like milk and everything, it's involved in everything. And a lot of scientists believe that it's one of the reasons that we're becoming so, that bacteria and viruses are becoming, not viruses, but bacteria are becoming immune to antibiotics,
because all the
things
food
like this.
we're eating is, yeah.
So I think that he has a pretty valid argument that this is a more natural way to consume meat.
It's definitely a fascinating topic. Like I said, I don't want animals hurt in any way, right? And I especially don't want them in any kind of slaughterhouse. So I like the idea that, one day, hopefully, slaughterhouses could be a thing of the past. And I like the idea that we're eating meat that has a lot less preservatives and GMOs and things like that. So I like that. But I'm still a little creeped out because, I don't know, I love sci-fi, as I said before, and I love all the movies and, I love like the books and the stories, but it just makes me wonder, like, I was talking about the island, like, so, okay, so we're making, meat now. What are we going to make next? And I don't know. It's interesting. And then it makes me wonder, like, about souls and things like that. Not to be, like, religious or spiritual, but it's just curious to me.
Well, I'm not so worried about what we'll make next. Honestly, who cares? We'll address that whenever it comes around. But I don't feel like I'm concerned. I don't feel like this type of thing is a situation that could create a slippery slope for something else. What are you really going to say? If somebody down the road starts like cloning humans or whatever you hate or you're against or whatever, what are you going to say? Oh, well, it all started with those meat people. Come on, because they created beef in some way or something. You're going to say that's what led to cloning people. I don't feel like it's going to be that kind of issue. I don't even really see how anybody could have an actual argument for it being any type of ethical issue in any way. Unless you're for slaughterhouses and you have some argument for it, it just doesn't make any sense to me, But what's funny about it, though, speaking of ethical issues, is that there were a ton of vegans. They actually reached out to a ton of vegans and they said, if this actually became a reality and we were able to upscale and actually bring this to market, would you start eating meat again? And a lot of them were like, yeah. Technically, this meat would be considered vegan. And it's important to understand that we are not talking about vegetarians because they are just incredibly misguided people who know nothing about nutrition. Whereas vegans are actually doing it for ethical reasons. They specifically do it. That's why they don't eat eggs or anything like that, because chickens are mistreated. They specifically do it because they think it's an ethical issue.
So aside from 3D printing and possibly creating like ground beef from like a petri dish,
a meat garden. It's a meat garden.
That's just an even creepier name. But aside from the 3D printing in the meat garden, we did want to talk about veterans, of course, right? Because that's why we're here and helping veterans in like every way we can. And recently I stumbled upon a couple of websites and organizations that focus on feeding homeless veterans. So I definitely thought that this would be a good time to talk about it. There's all sorts of different articles and all sorts of numbers that are tossed out of how many veterans are homeless, out there right now for various reasons. And then, of course, we're never really going to know how many there are out there. And we're never really going to know why they're homeless. Like, we're never going to know if it's because of like behavioral concerns, like PTSD we're never going to know like the whole reason. But I do feel like if there's one veteran out there that is homeless and is hungry, I definitely feel like we should do something about it if we can.
So we found especially one particular website that we were interested in called Feed Our Vets. And the website is feedourvets.org. And the website is specifically a nonprofit organization whose mission is to help veterans in the United States, their spouses and children, whose circumstances have left them on the battlefield of hunger. So one of the reasons, since we decided we were going to talk a little bit about the future of food, we also wanted to talk about the present circumstances that are happening in America. And as they actually say in their website, a lot of veterans are coming home and even getting out of the military, and they're finding that it's a pretty difficult economy. I know a lot of people are saying that the economy's better right now and everything, but it's simply just not the case for everyone. So we wanted to link to a couple of websites, including this one I just talked about, to give some resources if you find yourself in some type of situation where you may need to help out a friend or even help out your own family, and see if you can find a location where you may need food or you can get food. We wanted to link to a couple of those. And this organization that we found actually looks like a pretty upstanding organization. So hopefully we have reached out to them, and hopefully we can try and get them in the future and see if we can have them on the podcast. We would definitely love to. But they are basically dedicated to U.S. military veterans in need and their families. So we'll link to that, and we'll make sure that we provide as much information as we can to you guys for anybody that may need the help.
And if there's any organizations out there that you know of, please let us know, whether, you share it like on the podcast comments or, on Facebook or what have you, just because this is definitely something that I want to continue to talk about. Just like, I think we helped out in a small way with Clothes for Joe's. I mean, their organization's growing, and, their mission is to make sure that veterans that are homeless as well, have like, coats and, just like hygiene products and things like that. And we can link to them again, because I think they're doing a great job, and we had them on recently. And yeah,
for sure. Just a small update. They've had several. They've had quite a few little gatherings, and they've done really well with their.
I'm so excited for them.
Yeah, they're doing an awesome job up in Indiana. So yeah, but we'll make sure we link to these guys as well. And again, like Tracy said, if you have any organizations that you know of, or that you favor or donate to, send them to us. Our email address is themax@vetscafe.com. We're the same Max that every Mac you've ever served with. So the MACS@vetscafe.com. And you can email us and let us know about any organization that you may be interested in, or that you donate to, or that you help out with, anything like that. And we can make sure we get it posted and let as many people know as we possibly can. So thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Veterans Cafe podcast. If you get the opportunity, which you definitely should, because you're listening to the end of this episode, so you definitely have some time to pull out the phone out of your pocket, open up iTunes, and go and give us a review. We would definitely appreciate a review in iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you can get that episode in your sleep when you wake up on Wednesday morning. I'm Wes.
I'm Tracy.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Visit our website to join the conversation. That's vetscafe.com, vetscafe.com.